On March 14, 1998, Los Angeles police receive a 911 call about a grisly discovery.
There was a transient that was in the alley digging through the dumpster. Came across the body.
A white male, wrapped in garbage bags, is inside the dumpster.
He was curled up in a semi-fetal position. There was no identification on the victim. He was only wearing a blue shirt, pants, and underwear. There was nothing else on the victim. No shoes. Bottom of his feet were clean, which indicated to us that this was probably a body dump and the murder had occurred somewhere else. We saw a star-like pattern, which indicated to us it was probably a contact or close shot to the back of his head.
Police canvassed the area, but no one saw or heard anything. They send the body to the coroner's office for an autopsy and identification. The victim is identified by his fingerprints.
He was David Casden, a small business owner in the San Fernando Valley.
A few years earlier, Casden had worked for an insurance company.
In the insurance industry, people are fingerprinted, and those fingerprints are on file.
The medical examiner removes a .22 caliber bullet from the back of Casden's neck. Officers go to the victim's home about 20 miles from where Casden's body is discovered. David Casden's children have already been notified and are waiting for the police.
We're very emotionally distressed, but at the same time, willing to provide us with information.
Casden's daughter tells police she had just filed a missing persons report for her father the day before.
She hadn't heard from him since Thursday, 2 days prior. Her and her brother had noted that their father's vehicle was missing from the garage, as well as damage to a small slumpstone wall just outside the driveway.
They ask if their father had any enemies. The children are quick to implicate 65-year-old Sante Kimes and her 23-year-old son, Kenny.
They presented us with a letter that he had written several days prior, indicating that he didn't want to cooperate with the Kimes in a particular loan fraud scheme.
Casden's daughter doesn't know the specifics of the scheme, but recalls a strange conversation she'd had with her father just days before he disappeared.
His daughter was over at his house, and there was a car that was out front, and he was very suspicious of it. And he had told his daughter, if you ever see that car, don't go outside.
Casden had known the Kimes family for many years. He'd been friends with millionaire Ken Kimes Sr. since 1974, when Casden had worked on an insurance claim for the family. After Ken's death 4 years earlier, Casden lost touch with Ken's wife, Sante, and son, Kenny Jr. Until lately.
He had been threatened by them recently via telephone messages, personal appearances, and letters that he was to watch out and go along with their plans.
Casden's daughter gives them paperwork and bank statements to help them investigate the loan fraud scheme mentioned in the letter. Later that day, detectives put out an APB on Casden's missing car. They check into the background of Sante Kimes and her son, Kenny Jr. They soon find that one of them has a lengthy rap sheet. It's not Kenny, it's his mother.
Sante Kimes was a very interesting individual. She had served time for involuntary servitude or slavery. This was the most recent case since Civil War times. She had also been incarcerated for theft, and fraud.
She had a pattern of luring Mexican and Latin American immigrants with promises of good treatment, travel, and for the most part, she lied about everything.
Sante is what might be referred to as a true psychopath or a primary psychopath, and that is someone that's very cold, emotionless, cunning, not easily agitated or upset, but very manipulative and very callous.
My mother had no fear. Nothing frightened her. She was a combination of intelligence, wit, charisma, and she could use it for good or for bad.
So much is still unknown about her childhood. She had various stories that she would tell through the years. She sometimes would use the story of her childhood to gather sympathy.
After being born in the Oklahoma Dust Bowl, like many farmers in the 1930s, her family migrated to California.
Her father had passed away, and she was left in the care of her mother, and they were not doing well at all. Money was tight. There was rumors of her walking the streets, stealing food to eat.
A brief marriage right after high school ends in divorce. She marries again and has a son, Kent, but this marriage also fails.
My mother and my father divorced. Then it was just me and Mom for a number of years.
Sante begins shoplifting, and her crimes soon escalate. Check fraud, grand larceny, grand theft auto.
She had a pattern through the years of getting into trouble with the law by allegedly taking items that she could have afforded. Some of her friends thought that she liked the excitement, the getting away with, pulling one over on people.
When she walked in a room, she got the attention from everybody, men and women alike. She had a resemblance to Elizabeth Taylor, and she played it up to the hilt. And she had the charisma to go with the looks, which gave her a power over men.
Police are surprised at her history, but the slavery charges concern them the most because of her violent treatment towards her maids.
They would clean already clean floors. She wanted them to sew all the time. She had all manner of rules, and several of them she beat. One she burned with a hot iron.
In 1970, Sante meets and later marries real estate millionaire Ken Kimes.
She found out about him. He was profiled in a local magazine, and she learned what he liked and tailored herself to fit that image. He liked the color white, so she wore it all the time. He liked the smell of gardenias. That became her perfume.
She's projecting the image that she wants you to see. It can be a very charismatic person, a very believable person. It's all designed to get what she wants. So if she needs to be charming and highbrow, she can. If she needs to be hard and callous, that she can be too.
The two of them together were just an incredible team. They knew how to have fun together. She provided excitement that I think was absent to him.
It isn't long before Ken Sr. becomes aware of Sante's criminal behavior. In March 1998, Los Angeles police are investigating con artist Sante Kimes and her son Kenny in the murder of David Casden. They learn that even her husband, Ken Sr., contributed to her crimes.
I think that Ken Kimes Sr. sort of got seduced into this situation, and he went from being a legitimate business guy to pretending to be an ambassador and engage in these cons and ruses.
5 years later, Sante gives birth to Kenny Jr. in 1975.
My brother Kenny came into the picture when I was 12. He was the heir to the fortune. He was the prince. And that was the reason why she got pregnant.
A few years later, the Kimes family moves to Las Vegas. At an early age, Sante transforms Kenny into her accomplice.
She would hire people to come over to be his friend. She controlled who he could see, when he could see them, how long, who had access to him. For a psychopath, everybody, including their own children, are simply pawns to be manipulated and used. She was molding him.
People ask me what was the difference between my upbringing and Kenny's upbringing. I was in more public school, so I had more contact outside of the home. He was tutored in home all the time. She was more than controlling, it was compulsive.
But Kenny does get a chance to break away from his mother's tight grasp when Sante serves her time for slavery.
He was around 10 years old when this happened. He saw the detectives come and arrest his mother. It was devastating.
That's the time where he gets the best shot at a normal life. He grows closer to his father, who was retired to take care of him. And he enrolled in a good school in Las Vegas and made friends.
Sante returns home after serving 3 years in jail on December 11th, 1989.
When she gets released from prison, the old patterns of control emerged again.
Years pass. Kent moves out and starts his own family. And in the fall of 1993, Kenny enrolls in college. Then, in 1994, Ken Sr. dies suddenly from an aneurysm.
My mother, she was scared because she did not have her name on anything. Not one deed, not one checkbook, not even a credit card. So here's this wife of this multimillionaire who has no access to the money whatsoever.
Now, Sante and Kenny Jr. only have each other. Sante manages to conceal Ken Kimes' death from the general public for 2 years. During that time, Kenny drops out of college and returns home to live with Sante.
That's when I started becoming aware of how strange things were becoming with my mother and my brother.
Kenny begins taking part in more of his mother's schemes as she systematically tries to liquidate the assets of the Kimes estate. After several fights, Kent decides to distance himself from his mother and brother.
I was kind of watching him change, and it scared me.
In Los Angeles, investigators are suspicious of the Kimes, but need to find a motive in David Casden's murder. A few days later, on March 17th, police locate Casden's car a mile from the crime scene, but they find little evidence.
We believed that Sante and Kenneth Kimes were somehow involved in David Casden's death.
During their investigation, police pieced together the details of the loan fraud scheme. Sante took a $280,000 loan out on her house in David Casden's name.
A piece of property on Geronimo Way, just outside the Las Vegas area, which was worth several $100,000. Sante Kimes had occupied this property for a while prior to this loan fraud.
David Casden had received a loan book in the mail from this bank saying that he now owed a certain amount of money every month for a loan that he had taken out on a house. He knew that he hadn't taken any loan out, so he contacted the bank to find out what it was all about.
Police discover the money had been transferred to an account belonging to Sante's notary, but only $10,000 remain. Days later, Sante threatens Casden to go along with the loan fraud.
David had had that relationship with her for so many years, he just didn't see how bad she had become. One of the tools that she was very good at using was intimidation. She knew how to scare people. She knew how to frighten people.
Police now have a motive for Casden's murder. They check into the Las Vegas house and find it is the subject of an arson investigation, with Sante and Kenny gone.
We went to interview the notary public that had forged David Casden's name on the loan documents. She had been told by Sante Kimes that she had the power of attorney to sign David Casden's name to these loan docs, which was in fact not true.
She also tells them that she notarized a new deed for the same house with the name Robert McCarran on it. Police hope that Robert McCarran can shed some light on the whereabouts of Sante and Kenny Kimes. In March 1998, LAPD are following a dangerous trail left by con artist Sante Kimes and her son, Kenny, suspects in the murder of David Casden. Police continue to track down leads to help them find their killers. They locate a police report about Robert McCarran, the man whose name was on the house deed when it was set on fire.
We were able to find out that Robert McCarran was a possible victim of a kidnap.
Police uncover a 911 call he made to West Valley, LA police after escaping from Sante and Kenny Kimes.
They had taken Robert to a hospital because Robert was complaining of chest pains. And that was the last contact they had. Robert didn't have a forwarding address. He had no permanent address.
It's very difficult tracking down every single lead in a 10 or 12-hour day. So we tried to keep up with the most pressing aspects of the investigation.
2 weeks later, on April 10th, a patrol officer finds McCarran at a homeless shelter. He tells them Sante Kimes hired him as a houseman for their Las Vegas home, but treated him like a slave.
I answered an ad in Las Vegas newspaper several months after that. You know, everything was just fine, and all of a sudden, it changed like from night to day.
He was a frail man, very soft-spoken. We knew that he didn't have the disposition. He was just not the murdering type of person.
Sante Kimes also hires a man named Sean Little to be their chauffeur.
Sean Little was actually brought by the Kimes from Las Vegas to watch Mr. McCarran, to keep control of him, and actually was utilized to assault him when Mr. McCarran wasn't doing what the Kimes instructed him to do.
I think they're the most evil people you could ever imagine.
Sante had forged McCarran's signature on the new deed to the Vegas home to take out a $500,000 insurance policy before it burned down.
I'm sure they would have killed me. What they were waiting for was to collect the insurance on the house in Las Vegas, and then they were going to get rid of me.
Detectives look for Sean Little, the man who stood watch over McCarran, but can't locate him. Robert McCarran tells investigators about a third man, Stan Patterson, who helped the Kimes move from their Vegas home to West LA before the fire. McCarran leads police to that address.
And within their Bel Air residence were some plastic trash bags that were of the same make and type of the ones that we actually found Mr. Casden wrapped in. We located a map detailing the route from West LA to Mr. Casden's residence. We felt that was a very key piece of evidence and that we were once again on to the right suspects.
Police tracked down Stan Patterson, the man McCarran told them about, living in the outskirts of Las Vegas. They decide to pay him a visit. He admits he sold Kenny .22 caliber handguns.
The .22 caliber weapon that he purchased matched the make, caliber, and rifling characteristics as the projectile that the coroner's office recovered from the victim, David Casden.
Stan agrees to let police know if he hears from the Kimes again. Police soon learn through questioning witnesses that the two are now in Florida.
I think part of it is because of proximity to the Bahamas, where a lot of my stepfather's money was at. They were stealing motorhomes because then you don't have to check in a motel. They were looking for marks in Florida.
They wind up in Palm Beach. There is also the enticement of the elderly. To Sante, it's a community full of easy marks.
There's a pretty severe narcissistic element here. To constantly get over on people is proving to themselves that they're smarter than everybody else and reinforcing that.
Before LA police can arrest them in Florida, Sante and Kenny Kimes are on the move again, looking for their next big con.
They realized that there was bigger targets in New York City.
Irene Silverman, 82, former ballerina, owned a townhouse on East 65th Street.
They found out that Irene Silverman had a multi-million-dollar mansion on the Upper East Side, and she was renting out apartments.
On June 14th, 1998, Sante and Kenny Kimes arrive in New York. Kenny shows up at the townhouse with a reference and $6,000 cash for the first month's rent.
That was Irene Silverman's biggest mistake. No background checks or anything. My mother always told me that people's biggest weakness is money.
Mother-son team Sante and Kenny Kimes are in New York, embarking on their biggest con ever. While Los Angeles police are still looking to question them in the murder of David Casden. On June 14th, 1998, Kenny moves into apartment 1B under the name Manny Guerin. A few days later, Eva, his assistant, moves in as well.
When they move, they're sort of like a tornado that moves through society with a lot of devastation left in the wake of this. They touch or hurt most everybody that they come in contact with one way or the other.
Sante decides she wants to steal Irene's mansion, and with Kenny's help, she puts her plan in motion.
Psychopaths like Sante have unrealistic plans, and many times it's based on a history of having gotten away with some pretty outrageous things. So they begin to think that they're invulnerable and invincible and can do whatever they want, and they'll be able to get away with it.
But Irene is suspicious when Kenny doesn't complete his credit application and seems to avoid the security cameras in the lobby. Irene confides in friends about the strange new tenants in 1B. She decides to evict them on July 5th.
And no one was safe. No one. She could have loved you in January, but if it meant destroying you was going to better her position in July, then you're going to get destroyed.
In Los Angeles, police are still following a paper trail to locate the Kimes' whereabouts when Stan Patterson contacts them.
We learned from Mr. Patterson that he had received a call from Sante Kimes in New York.
And she wanted Stan to come out to New York so he could manage an apartment building. And I think she said something about bringing his toys, which Stan interpreted as guns.
Police don't have enough evidence to arrest them for murder. But there is an outstanding warrant for her arrest in Utah for writing a bad check.
We arranged a sting operation for him to fly to New York, meet with the Kimes, at which point we were going to utilize New York Police Department and New York FBI to take them into custody.
Stan plans to meet Kenny and Sante at a hotel, and from there, they will take him to the property. New York police set up surveillance at the hotel.
The day wore on. My partner, Detective Cox, and myself were notified constantly that there was no sighting of the Kimes. We persisted in our request for them to hang tight. And sure enough, around 5 p.m., Sante Kimes showed up.
There's still no sign of Kenny. Police keep their distance, hoping to arrest the pair together. Agents can't wait much longer. This may be their only chance to nab Sante Kimes. Finally, they get their shot. At that moment, across town, the New York police are called to the house of Irene Silverman. Irene Silverman is missing.
Irene Silverman hadn't taken a step outside of her Manhattan townhouse by herself in 15 years. So when she was missing that July day, it raised alarms immediately. Her rental agent called the police the day she vanished. Suspicion fell quite quickly on this mysterious tenant.
He refused to show identification, and he was very specific and emphatic about receiving a receipt with her signature on it.
New York authorities obtain a search warrant for the townhouse, but find little evidence. Police want to talk with the mysterious Manny Guerin and are unaware that he and Kenny Kimes are one and the same.
Irene Silverman could not be found, nor could the tenant from apartment 1B.
The next day, Irene Silverman's disappearance hits the papers. Eyewitnesses are able to give the police a description, and a sketch is made.
When the police had a press conference and released a sketch of Manny Guerin, and it was on the media, one of the federal agents who had arrested Kenny Kimes, they put two and two together.
The agent realizes the sketch of Manny Guerin resembles their prisoner, Kenny Kimes. New York police question Sante and Kenny Kimes, but they deny any knowledge of Irene Silverman. The next day, police locate Sante and Kenny's car.
There was a .45 caliber gun found in the car. There was a large black nylon bag found in the trunk.
They also find a date rape drug, a stun gun, a 9mm Glock, $22,000 in cash, plus forged Social Security cards, and a forged document giving them power of attorney in Irene Silverman's name. In another bag, police uncover more incriminating evidence.
In that bag was, in fact, a forged deed to Irene Silverman's residence.
But most disturbing is the set of 13 spiral notebooks.
Sante Kimes kept these spiral notebooks where she would write notes One entry was get social security number, elderly people, easy targets. So she would write things that were extremely incriminating.
The notebooks also contain information relating to the David Casden murder.
The most significant entries in Sante and Kimes' notebooks, which were voluminous in nature, to our investigation here in Los Angeles, were several entries that stated, "Kill DK."
Sante and Kenny Kimes are held on the check fraud. Their bail is denied.
And I remember a good friend of mine called me up and said, "Ken, have you seen the paper?" And I hadn't. He was turned to page 4. I opened it up and there was a picture of my mother. First thing I thought, man, she's gonna hate that picture. Then I read the article. That was the first time I heard the name Irene Silverman. But when I saw the name David Casden, all the pieces fell into place in a millisecond. I put the paper down and I cried because I knew. I knew that everything that article said about them, the fires, the murders, trying to steal the mansions, I knew they were true. I couldn't deny it anymore.
A few weeks later, LAPD detectives arrive in New York, hoping to elicit a confession. Their case is weak. They have motive, but no witnesses and no weapon. David Casden was shot with a .22 caliber handgun, but none of the guns found in the Kimes car match. For the Casden family, back in LA, justice must wait. In New York, Sante and Kenny Kimes are arrested for the murder of Irene Silverman, while Los Angeles police hope to arrest them for David Casden's murder. Detectives in LA finally catch a break 2 months after the Kimes arrest in New York. With the help of the New York police, they locate Sean Little, an LA resident mentioned in Sante's notebooks, and the man who helped hold Robert McCarran hostage.
Sean was afraid. He was afraid of Kenny and Sante even at that point, and he did whatever they said. Because the Kimeses had always brought up the fact of they knew where his family was.
Little decides to tell LA police what he knows.
And he said early one morning, Kenny woke him up and they drove out to David Casden's house. He didn't know who David Casden was. Kenny told Sean to stay outside. Then he saw Kenny go in. Sean hears a pop, and shortly after that, Kenny's at the front door waving Sean to come on in the house, come on in the house. And he sees David Casden lying on the kitchen floor. Kenny told Sean to go out to the driveway and to back in David Casden's car into the garage so they could close the garage door and load Casden's body into the trunk.
Kenny Kimes, with Sean Little's help, removed David Casden's body through the kitchen garage door, put him in the back of David Casden's own vehicle, and then left.
Kenny and Sean leave Casden's body and car near the airport, throw the gun down the sewer, and then make one last stop.
They drove to a floral shop in the San Fernando Valley, purchased a bouquet of flowers for Mrs. Kimes, and then drove to the residence in Bel Air, wherein Kenny presented them to his mother in sort of a, "Well, Mom, the mission has been completed. You should be happy. All went well. The job is done."
Finally, LA prosecutors have a case, with Sean Little as their star witness. But the New York DA also plans to prosecute, and is first to bring indictments. On December 16, 1998, Sante and Kenny Kimes are indicted in New York on 84 separate charges, including the second-degree murder of Irene Silverman, even though her body has not been found. Officials hope the mother and son team will turn on each other in court.
You have a murder case in New York that was almost unprecedented. There was no body, there was no confession, there was no DNA.
They both plead not guilty.
My mother was begging me to come out to New York. There was nothing I could do. I knew they were guilty. I wanted to be a savior, but I couldn't. I knew it was too late for that.
For months, the defendants maintain their innocence. On May 18, 2000, Sante and Kenny Kimes are pronounced guilty on all counts. Together, they're sentenced to nearly 250 years in prison.
They're into denial about this. They're never going to admit they did anything wrong. If anything, they're going to turn it on its head. And she's going to claim to have been framed and victimized, and the evidence was planted, and the police framed her, and the prosecutor was bad, and the judge wouldn't let her testify. And it's all going to be some horrible injustice that's been perpetrated against her. That's just how they think, and that's just who they are.
California officials announced plans to extradite the defendants back to LA to stand trial for the murder of David Casden. If convicted in California, they can face the death penalty.
Whether you believe in the death penalty or not, it's absolutely irrelevant when it comes to being your own brother and your own mother. You don't want to see it happen.
The case here is stronger. Prosecutors have a body, a motive, and a star witness. The two are extradited and about to stand trial in 2004, when suddenly, prosecutors are blindsided. Sean Little vanishes.
When Sean disappeared, we were very upset. Sean was our main witness. Sean was really the center point of our case.
With no witness, investigators fear they will not get a conviction. Then, suddenly, Kenny Jr. decides to talk.
I remember Kenny telling us that he wanted to talk to us through his attorney because he considered it a circus at this point with his mom. The game was over.
Kenny agrees to testify against his mother only if neither one of them will receive the death penalty.
And that was a pretty defining moment for both my brother and my mother, because they were attached at the hip for a long time. They were the team, inseparable team.
Over the course of 3 days, Kenny confesses to the murders.
We talked to Kenny about the murder of David Casden.
Kenny tells detectives that Casden was going to report them. And Sante wanted him dead.
On the third day of interviewing, he described in detail how he and his mother, Sante Kimes, had lied in wait in the building owned by Irene Silverman.
And they could see everything from their little peephole.
Kenny Kimes, with his bare hands, choked Irene Silverman to death.
She was 5 foot tall, under 100 pounds, so not a very big woman. He placed her in a large duffel bag, put her on one of those luggage carts, and he just wheeled her down the street, Kenny said, you know, he passed people on the sidewalk, but of course, it looks like he's just rolling a piece of luggage.
He put her in their vehicle and transported her several miles away and deposited her body in a dumpster behind a gas station. In my 27 years of working as a law enforcement officer in the city of Los Angeles, it was surreal sitting across the table from a sociopath that is describing in detail how he conducted murders, some with the help of his mother, some at the orders of his mother.
Very dangerous people. One word to describe them: evil.
Kenny testifies against his mother, pleads guilty, and is sentenced to life. Sante represents herself and pleads not guilty. She claims the cops threatened her son with the death penalty and forced him to make a false confession.
Sante Kimes has tons and tons and tons of energy, more than probably everybody in this room put together. It's just like the woman's 70 years old and she never stops. She never stops thinking. She never stops thinking of a way to get out.
Sante Kimes is convicted of first-degree murder in the case of David Casden. On July 7, 2004, she is sentenced to life in prison.
Since the convictions, I've reached out to him, but I don't know if Kenny's to the point where he feels remorse for what he's done yet.
I don't believe, in knowing what I know of Kenny Kimes, that his life would have followed the same path of crime and violence, including murder, if it hadn't been orchestrated and requested by his mother. He appeared to be a normal college kid until he was extracted by his mother and told that she needed him in another capacity.
My mother has never confessed. She's never come clean. The tragedy of Kenny's life will haunt me forever. The biggest regret of my life. I should have tried harder to pull him out of her grasp.